welcome to the AWIP podcast. I'm your host, Rae Smith. If you've been following this podcast for a while, you know that we talk about investigations and all things animal welfare related. So make sure that you find us on LinkedIn, YouTube, and Spotify. We'll post the videos up there every single week on Tuesdays. And if you're more interested in learning about AWIP and our mission, what we do, make sure you visit us. We got two different websites, awip.org.uk or awipusa.org. I apologize if I sound a little nasally. I have a cold, which is really bumming me out, and I've had it for a past week, so I can feel it all up here. If I'm a little bit out of it, that's why, just so you know. It's been rough. My colds always last like 2 weeks, so it's a pain in the butt. But I'm super excited about our guest today. So Amy Jo Seitz is the director of the City of Fort Wayne Animal Care and Control, and she's here to talk to us, and we're going to get into all the nitty-gritty about the differences, the pros, the cons, the good, the bad, the ugly of open admission versus limited admission or managed intake. So Amy, thanks for coming on. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me.
So before we get into it, why don't you just kind of walk us through your background in animal welfare and how you got to be, the queen of the castle there?
Sure, by default. No, I'm just kidding. I have been with Fort Wayne Animal Care and Control since 2004. I have both a bachelor's and master's degree in criminal justice, so it kind of went right along the same lines. I started my career in criminal justice over at Community Corrections. In this position, I started out as office supervisor, which is like, paying the bills, and you're responsible for dispatchers and all the things. And it said criminal justice degree, and I was like, well, that's weird. Never would have equated an animal control entity with criminal justice, obviously, until I walked in and I was like, oh, wow, this is a thing. Yes, a CJ degree is very applicable to this type of work. So from office supervisor, I was promoted in 2012 to the deputy director. And then in 2016, my successor, she retired and recommended me for the job. And the mayor said, sure, why not? So here I am. I'm 20 years into animal care and control. So I've been there, done that. And it's quite been the whirlwind, let's say that.
You've been in this for a while, so you're like very well seasoned. You know what's going on.
Yes. Some days. Most days.
Things are a little hectic right now with Thanksgiving coming up, I'm sure, like for everybody. So,
yes.
So Amy, let's chat about this. I'll be totally honest. I don't usually I write out a whole bunch of questions, but I don't have a whole bunch of questions because I want this to I want to have a good discussion about the differences of open admission and limited admission. So. What's the difference? Let's start with open admission. What is that? What's the good? What's the bad?
Sure. So we are an open access or open admission facility, if you will. We are a municipal shelter, which means that the city funds the basics of my department. So they fund all of my officers, their equipment, the fleet, the lights and the water and the gas, dry food, litter. I get maybe $5,000 worth of vaccines a year. They supply me with euthanasia solution because there's a whole reason for that. So animal control, full access, open admission shelter. We are literally just the bare bones. That's what the city provides us. My jurisdiction is Allen County, Indiana. So anything that comes to me from Allen County, Indiana, I cannot say no. Whether or not it's an aggressive animal, it's a fearful animal, it's something that should be a euthanasia by request, but the owner's just not prepared to say it, I have to go ahead and take that in. Strays, confiscates, so meaning, let's say, like last night, for example, owners got arrested on a property and they had a 14-week-old puppy. So my officers went out, got the puppy, house was condemned. It was a whole thing. whole drama. So we do all of our bite investigations. I mean, no matter what's coming our way, the answer can never be no. So that, in a nutshell, is open access, open admission, however you want to say it. And the downside, of course, is we're constantly playing chess. We're trying to figure out where each animal goes in our facility. I can hold 120 dogs, I can hold 200 cats, and I can hold 20 small animals. We are the only shelter in our area that can handle small pocket pets. So guinea pigs, rabbits, hamsters, gerbils, whatever. So when your 5-year-old decides that they no longer want to care for that pet, weird that happens, they surrender to us because the pet stores won't take them back, etc. Or my favorite is when the pet stores don't properly sex the 2 rabbits, and then there's 20. And we get the excess. So it's kind of all the things. For open admission, I'm glad we're here, because when you don't have another option, we are your only option. So, and that's what we try to tell people is use us as your last option, not your first option. The only time we want to be your first option is if it's public safety. That is my main goal. I fall right under the police department. I am part of the public safety division. All of my officers, including myself, have a special police commission. So we're responsible for upholding all the ordinances and the state statutes regarding animal welfare, allow us to do our job in that respect. But if it's an own surrender and you have time and you have people that might want it, try that route first so you have a better opportunity for a live outcome and I don't have to make those tough decisions.
So it really doesn't matter. I'm sure just like you guys, you have to go into a hoarder house and you're expecting, 15 cats, and all of a sudden you find out there's 120 in there. And it's like, well,
order math is always wrong.
Always triple it. Always.
At least. If you can see 20, there's probably another 40 you can't see.
Exactly. That aren't in the walls or the ceiling.
Right. Yes. We've all been there, and that's why we're laughing, because that's what keeps us sane.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I like that you also touched on when there's a public safety issue, because I think that let me rewind. The city, you guys are required by the city to be open admission, take these animals in for a myriad of reasons. Is that specifically written into like the charter, or like where is it that mandates you to do that?
So it's a couple different ways. So the city ordinance, so technically I'm only city of Fort Wayne. However, because the city of Fort Wayne falls within Allen County doesn't have their own shelter. So they contract by interlocal agreements with our shelter to say, hey, we need somewhere to shove our animals. So can we come to you? So they pay us a fee. It's very confusing, but I have 3 contracts in one just for Allen County. And then I also have the city of New Haven, which still falls within Allen County, Indiana, but they wanted more. They wanted us to actually be a presence in their city. They're like, I don't have my own animal control officers, so can you do this? So before we agreed, we're like, you got to adopt our ordinance, and we're not doing livestock calls because you guys allow livestock, and I don't want to be a part of that. And I'm also not doing your sanitation or barking complaints. You guys can handle those yourself. Otherwise, we would be out there, you know that. I mean, barking and complaints about feces are like...
That's all you'd be doing.
Yes. So we took away those things, and now we basically are full response in the city of New Haven as well. And it's like 22 square miles. So it's not huge, but it's enough, right? It's enough. And they pay us a very decent amount of money, and they've actually thanked us because they're like, oh, you've actually increased our revenues because we didn't realize how many people were in violation of XYZ. And I mean, yay, yeah. I guess. But I mean, here you go. Now we're getting them into line. But yeah, we've had several cruelty cases. We've had several hoarding cases. We've had neglects and all of these things that they take to their own court. We issue the summons and we don't even have to go to court. They do it for us. City's not like that. Cities. So,
There's a lot of different things you have to keep track of. All the contracts, how they operate, city, county, different,
yes,
different cities. So back to my question, because I diverted here. So
it's okay.
you had talked about how public safety is top priority. You've always been very, very clear about that. And we've chatted for months and months earlier this year about that type of thing. Um, so when it comes to public safety and the intake of animals, I want to talk a little bit about that because what I'm seeing over time in other jurisdictions is the same thing that we see with a lot of shelters. They're understaffed, they're underfunded, they have so many calls, they just you can't get to them. And there has been this kind of idea of there's been this end result where animals not being intaked are just left in the public, and whether they're aggressive or not. But I'm talking like particularly with aggressive animals and the aggression towards people or other dogs or such. So from your perspective, what you guys do over there, obviously that's a huge part of what you guys do. Why is that so important to be able to have this mandate where you are required to intake these aggressive animals then?
So for us, it's interesting when I hear of other communities not responding to stray calls. And, they're like, oh, the animal will find their way home, or the owner will just needs time to look for it, etc. And in my mind, as public safety, you don't know what's going to trigger that particular animal at any point in time.
Mhm.
So the last thing we want is to jeopardize our community by saying, oh, it'll find its own way. And then a kid is walking home and the horrendous situation happens where a bite occurs. So for us, whether it's aggressive or not, if it's aggressive or displaying aggressive behaviors, we're going to escalate that call for our officers. I have 12 field officers that cover the city of Fort Wayne. They work 7 a.m. to 1 a.m. And then I have an emergency call out from 1 a.m. to 7 a.m. So an aggressive dog is going to be a top priority, and we're actually going to make it a dual dispatch. We're going to call the police department and we're going to say, hey, we're heading to 123 Smith Street because we have an aggressive dog. This is what we're looking for, blah, blah, blah. So we take it very seriously, and there are times where we get on scene and they read the behavior completely wrong. It was more fear-based, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, yep. But it's always going to be, we're going to err on the side of safety and we're going to go out, whether it's aggressive or not, just because you don't know what's going to trigger. And the last thing we want is Fort Wayne Animal Care and Control fails to respond and this happened. Yeah. We're not going to be in the news for that. That is something we pride ourselves on. If it's not an aggressive dog, there's been so many times where our officers have called the owners on the cell phone and are like, hey, we got Buffy. Can we meet you at your house? And they're like, oh my gosh, yes. So we do field RTOs, or return to owners for anyone that doesn't use that terminology. But we do field RTOs. We try to meet the owners halfway. But if it's an aggressive dog or if it bit and it's a pretty decent bite, we're taking it to the shelter for quarantine. So that's another component of our interlocal agreement with the Board of Health. We have to enact quarantines. So
yeah. What about if they're not loose? So I think we're becoming a little bit more educated, or we're seeing more aggressive or behaviorally unsound animals, owned animals, yes, being surrendered for a whole bunch of stuff. But I think like most typically people will go to a shelter, rescue, whatever, and they want to go to specifically like a no-kill shelter, right? And they know that their animal has a problem, they don't want it to be euthanized, they want to work with it, blah, blah, blah. But they can't keep the animal anymore. And so just like because everyone's full, the default when they're inevitably turned away is, well, you got to go take it to Fort Wayne Animal Care and Control because there's nowhere else to take it. That's also very important to you guys too, because, well, why exactly?
So we actually try. Now, I don't want to say that we are any sort of way limited mission because that's not the case. So whenever it's a public safety threat, regardless, we're going to take it in over the counter. We do try to do surrenders by appointment if possible, because we are open access or open admission. We want to try to make sure that we give that animal the best possible outcome. Right now, we're on a 4-week waiting period. Now, southern Indiana, meaning Indianapolis, just 2 hours south of us, they are on a 4-month wait for surrenders. They are also on a 90-day stray wait, meaning that people can't bring in strays to them. No, that's not us. We will always go out, and even if you come to us, we're going to have that hard conversation with you, though. We're going to have you fill out an adoption profile, an animal profile. It lets us know what to expect. If you've got active bites or previous bites, and I'm talking like, more than a few punctures, and it wasn't like, a kid stepped on his tail and he yipped kind of thing. We all understand those scenarios.
Right.
Those things we understand, but when you have practice behaviors that they're getting more confident and now you're looking to surrender, why is that okay for me now to go, hey, Smith family, can you take this dog into your home knowing the history of this dog?
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to do that because that's a liability for my department. And I can't in good conscience say this dog is going to be safe in your home. Mm-hmm. So instead, if you don't want that potential outcome of humane euthanasia, we do have behavior training certificates that we give to the public for free. We have specific trainers, and I'm not talking about sit down stay. I'm talking about trainers that actually work with behaviorally challenged dogs that have aggressive tendencies. Mm-hmm. We're going to recommend that you go to a certain veterinarian that handles behavior modification medications. But this is a long, drawn out process.
Yeah.
And probably as well as I do that most individuals today don't have the time to commit to that type of basically overhauling their entire life for this dog.
Right.
I can't fault them for it. I don't fault them for it. But please don't blame me or our shelter when we have to humanely euthanize it, because there aren't magical farms out there for these dogs to go to.
100%. Whoa, I could champion that all day. Amy, I'm sure you've, I know you know about this. These finder to foster programs. I'm slowly transitioning us a little bit over here to get into manage and take. So finder to foster programs. Yep. They're very interesting, I think. And, I would cautiously say that the idea, of finder to foster program has its merits, but I would say it's in general not a very good idea. What are your thoughts on that?
So we have one program that we call field to foster. So you bring me 2-week-old kittens, right? 3-week-old kittens, maybe. My foster team is going to come to you and actually give you a crash course on how to be a foster for these kittens, provide you with everything you need, including the phone support, and send you on your merry way. Because the other option is, if I don't have an available foster home, we all know that humane euthanasia is a very strong possibility. So we do that type of similar program. What we also do is what's called a found report. Now, I will tell you that some people will fill out found reports for dogs, but they're generally, and this is going to sound really probably discriminatory against some sort of breeds, but they're usually the smaller dogs. They're usually the Goldens or the Labs or things like that. They're not necessarily our boxy, muscular dogs. They're just not. Those are the ones that our officers are picking up from the people that have found them.
Yep.
Right? So the other dogs are getting what's called a found report. So they have to report it to us within 48 hours. They're posting it on our volunteer-based nonprofit group called Lost Dogs of Fort Wayne. So they're posting it there as well. They're getting it scanned for a microchip, and they have to hold it for 30 days before they can do anything. They can't microchip it. They can't vaccinate it. They can't spay or neuter it. They can't groom it, nothing. They just have to hold it. But any point in time, they can bring it to us. At the end of 30 days, though, we're calling them going, hey, did the owner end up coming forward? And they're like, no. Okay, well, we're going to offer you spay neuter certificate. We're going to offer you a free vet exam. We're going to offer you these things to make sure that it's a responsible placement. And sometimes they keep the dogs, and sometimes they're like, oh, actually, I found someone that wants it now. And so we'll do the transfer in our system so we know where the dog went, that kind of thing. But yeah, we're getting pictures and all the things, still posting it on our website saying, this dog is yours. We know where it's at. Come call us. So that kind of thing. So does it have its merit? Yes. Can it be very scary? Absolutely. As a shelter, I'm not going to force anyone to keep anything that they don't want or are not comfortable. So we always give them the option. We're like, hey, you found a dog. You have a couple different options. What would you like to do? And so then but we're never going to say, oh, sorry, we're full right now. Can you keep that 100-pound dog in your house, with your 2 chihuahuas? No problem. We're not doing that.
And it's I love it. It's so responsible. The way I think that you guys go about this, because in exactly how you described, that kind of program is not being carried out in that manner. There are shelters, rescues, NGOs who are telling people the dog is a mile from its house, just leave it, or well, we can't take it in, so it's kind of your responsibility now and you have to hold it. And it makes me so this is why I was saying in general, because I think this is more typically, at least what I'm seeing, is there's so many things that can go wrong, putting the family at risk. I mean, most of the time, we don't even know, like, do they have kids that come over? Do they have other animals in the house? What the history of that dog is. And like you had said, you never know when they're going to get set off. A lot of people are not well versed on medical conditions that may need to be addressed, may think that that's just kind of normal since they just found the animal like that. So they're like, what is, they see them all sniffly. And then, we find out 4 weeks later that their URI has actually gone full blown. Would you agree that those are some of the reasons why maybe these finder to foster programs may or may not be well executed in certain places?
I feel that yes, if they're not getting the support system that they need, and in my opinion, for whatever it's worth, I feel that we owe our society that responsibility. It's our responsibility to make sure that they're safe. So as a municipal shelter, or even if you're not the municipal shelter for your area, but you are the shelter, it is your responsibility by default to make sure that your public is properly educated and supported in whatever they're doing. Yes, shelters are full. We get that. I'm not discrediting that. I understand that. We're finally below 200 animals, and I'm ecstatic inside the shelter. We're like at 160, and we're like, yes, more dogs can have full runs, but it's like otherwise, we're like, dogs are in half cages, and that's not ideal. But anyways, I digress. So it's our job as the animal shelter for our community to make sure that the public knows what they don't know.
Mm-hmm.
We can't take for granted that just because they love an animal, they know what they're looking for, and you have to be able to say, if at any point in time you are uncomfortable, or your dog is not comfortable, or your cat is not comfortable, or it's that dog is not comfortable being with you, call us and we'll take it.
Right. And it's not always like it results in like a euthanasia, right? Sometimes it's not just a good home, and maybe it just needs to be in a different home.
Right. Yes.
So,
absolutely.
okay, so managed intake, limited intake, whatever you want to call it, it's interchangeable. Amy, let's start with the pros. What are the pros of managed intake?
So with managed intake, I believe that it allows the shelter, whoever's doing it, implementing it, etc., to ensure that they have the proper space, time, and people to dedicate to the animals that are coming in. So if they know they have 4 small dogs coming in during the week, then they're going to be able to look at their kennels and go, okay, so I can put them there, and there, and this person takes care of this ward, this takes care of this ward, and maybe I shouldn't be pulling from my other shelters, kind of thing. And what I say by pulling, again, so depending on who your audience is, a limited admission shelter, they have a huge role for shelters like mine. I'm open admission. I take in over 11,000 animals a year. I need someone, a brick and mortar shelter, as well as my foster-based rescues, to go, hey, do you guys need help? Why, yes, we do. Why don't you come on in here and take a look at these eligible animals?
Yes.
Again, I'm going to ensure that even my partners aren't getting known aggressive animals. I will point out what I do know as far as their behaviors, like this is a fear issue, but this is what we've been seeing. So is it something you can work with? Any of our case dogs, they're not going to be able to take because that's their evidence, obviously. Mm-hmm. But everybody else, I'm like, come on in. How many spaces do you got? You know, that kind of thing. So they are truly a resource for us. So then, because our door keeps going like this, right? It's a revolving door. It never stops going. Their door stops. They can say, no, thank you. I can't, or not right now.
To anything. To aggressive, to healthy, to yes. Sick, injured, big, yes. Small, however many, however yes. Few.
Color. I mean, if they have 5 black dogs on their floor, are they necessarily going to bring in 5 more? Probably not. And I don't fault them for that because it truly is a business. In my opinion, a limited admission facility is more of a business because their business is to get animals out so they can control what comes in, right? Whether it's puppies, whether it's maybe a couple challenging dogs that we have that aren't doing well in our shelter, but they have a limited, floor space, they have more room, they have more volunteers, etc. Whatever the case may be. Maybe it's a better fit for them, or maybe they have a different foster group that can take that dog from them, and have more time with it. We
Sure.
don't have the luxury of having time.
Right. Do you do behavioral evaluations on all dogs and cats?
Cats, yes, we're getting better on cats. Dogs, we absolutely do. So we run play groups every single day. That is our initial assessment component, if you will. So we have play groups. Of course, we have their profiles if we know the history. We also talk to our animal care specialists. They're the ones that are providing the care for them while they're in their kennels. So they're writing behavior notes as well, like what they're seeing, how they were able to leash them. Were they at the back of the kennel? Were they at the front of the kennel? What did they react to? All of those factors, because again, that's liability. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to give our best educated, informed guess as to the best style of housing this dog needs based on what we're seeing at the shelter.
So it's important because those evaluations help you set that animal up for success, for, hopefully when it's adopted doesn't come back, but.
And also for our partners, we have to hold strays for 3 business days. Usually by the 3rd business day, we're dropping them in the yard, for play group. Just, hey, we're going to see, right? We're going to see how this is going. And if it ends up being claimed, no harm, no foul. But if they're not claimed, then when our shelter partner walks through or our rescue groups are saying, yeah, I've got room for a couple dogs, we can say, well, this is what we've got, and this is what we're seeing. Do you have the capability? Because we don't want to set them up for failure either, because the more challenging dogs we give them, the less likely they're going to be willing to help us,
Yep.
Right? But if we've got, I think our favorite, we have Fort Wayne Pit Bull Coalition here in Fort Wayne, and it never fails. We always get like this cute, smushy, like hot mess pocket pity thing with a skin funk, right? But it's so adorable and so sweet, but we're like, he's kind of a medical issue. You want him?
Yeah.
And then they can choose, do I have the donations to support it?
Yeah. So those ones are expensive, and we get a lot.
And we also do the spay or neuter before we send them out. So we usually have, because we have one veterinarian and I have a few vets that come in and assist. So they'll actually perform the spay or neuter surgeries for these pets for our rescue and shelter partners. So again, it's easy. It's like a gift package. We're like, here you go. They're more likely to take them.
Okay, Amy, the delicate part here. Cons of managed intake. I know I can think of plenty. Yes. But I want to hear from you.
So what I have seen in various jurisdictions is that the limited admission or managed intake, they obviously can pick and choose what they bring in, cherry pick, if you will. It's almost like, you're in kindergarten and you're playing kickball and you get to pick the best athletes first, right? So it's kind of the same. So then ultimately what happens is those other animals have to go somewhere, right? So they come to us and we give them that staple statement. We can never guarantee a live outcome. There's always a possibility of euthanasia. We say it, they sign it, but can I call? Sure. You just have to be prepared for the answer because there's never a guarantee for live outcome, right? It's just it is what it is. So my frustration of what I've seen with other shelters is that they can pick and choose. Fine. Again, it's a business model. They got to be able to flip animals faster. What I don't necessarily always understand is that if your full access, open admission shelter is struggling with euthanasia, why are you pulling from outside of our community and or state by huge volumes? And then when you do pull from us, let's say we have 10 potentials, you pull 2 because you've already made a commitment to national orgs, or whatever, to pull these animals. It's frustrating as a municipal shelter when I see things like that happen, or when I see breeder releases happening where you've got puppy mill dogs, or you've got a certain community that tends to breed regularly, and instead of being able to sell these dogs, they're threatening to kill these dogs. So you bring them in, but then you're not ensuring that they can't breed anymore. So why are we rewarding that when you have our community is already struggling? All of our communities across the US, it's not just an Indiana thing. It's not just a Midwest thing. It's all over. And the divisive language has to stop, and the partnerships have to grow. And we need to realize that we both have a responsibility to the animals and to our community. And that I think has been forgotten along the way.
I think so. I would very much agree. Do you, specifically where you are, because you have these other, I don't know why we call them rescues. I feel like they're more like rehoming agencies. I think that's a better term for them. One of our old guests said that, and I really liked that. So I'm trying to use that. So these rehoming agencies, these limited admission shelters, we're seeing an increase of them taking these wonderful, fluffy, cute, nice, adoptable animals, and we're left with the rest. Are you seeing that there at your shelter more often as time goes on, with this increase of there's this push for, I know you could tell I'm trying to stay away from this saving them all kind of thing, but I mean, it's really hard to talk about this without that piece of it.
Right.
Because it's a huge factor as to what open admission does, right? So anyway, I digress. Are you seeing that?
Yes. So the nice thing is that we do have a fairly decent relationship with our local limited admission shelter. They took in, I think, 1,900 animals last year, and we again took in 11,000, and they were able to pull, I think it was like 600 animals from us for the year, give or take. But anyways, yes, that is a possibility, and yes, that is something that I think that they would like to do, but we respectfully tell them, no, you're not taking all the puppies this time, because we can place them too. What I need you to take is boom, 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 kind of thing. So, and I know that historically has been an issue for shelters since, I've been doing this for 20 years, and it truly is. Sometimes the rescues or rehoming groups, if you will, go in and cherry pick what they want. But then there's some shelters that are like, I don't care, just take whatever, where we're like, wait a minute, we have our own adoption program, and we can push these through too. But what I really need help with, medium to large dogs, right? Who doesn't need help with medium to large dogs? I want to know who they are. So
Me too. I do too. I think we all would.
Yes. I mean, that 40 to on up, 40 pounds and on up, that's what we need help with, because we all know that when they come to us as teenagers, when they're goofy and they're obnoxious and they have no manners at all, those are the hard ones to place. That's what we need help with. And please, if you are a transfer shelter that accepts other animals from out of state, out of county, whatever, stop taking them, because your local shelter probably already has them.
Yep,
If you have
exactly.
puppies, fine, because I know that not everyone is having an influx of puppies. We started seeing it 3 years ago, but we all know what happened 3 years ago. So, and it hasn't stopped. We're still seeing litters of puppies, and I'm like, why? But anyway,
I can, I mean, I could tell you like here. So there was just some information because I'm in Colorado. Um, I think it was something like over the last 3 years, we had like 78,000 puppies transferred in from out of state. And it's like, what are we doing? Like, what are we doing? Like, we have animals that are right here. Like, don't get me wrong, it's great. It's great for the puppies and get homes. Like, that's not what I'm saying. But what about the ones that are here? What about the dogs that are here that we could be helping? I mean, it's not chump change. Someone's bringing one litter over, a year or every 6 months, like 78,000.
but, and then I want to know further, what are we doing in that area where you pulled to make sure that they're not having more of them?
Yes,
Is that happening?
right.
And I mean, I'm just guessing. I'm thinking, no, there
Mhm.
isn't a spay neuter initiative that's happening. There isn't a agreement that says, okay, we're going to take these puppies from you and get them homes, but show me the mom so I can
Yeah.
get her stay. So I don't know. It's definitely frustrating. I think I would hope that someday soon people realize, in whatever field you're in for animal welfare, that we are truly all in this together, and we really do need to work together and see each other's value and position and reason for existence.
I think a big part of that is transparency as well, because so many people have differing ideas about what is open admission, what is limited intake, what does that mean. I want to read a couple of bullet points I found in this article. I won't say who it was written by. I found it the other day, talking about what managed intake is and isn't. And I want to know, well, we'll go in first, like what they're saying managed intake is. And I want to see to what extent you agree, disagree with these points. So, what managed intake is, according to this person, is creating a pet helps service to assist struggling pet owners in finding and accessing resources, being transparent with the public if the pet they're bringing in may be at risk of euthanasia, offering information and practical solutions to keep pets in their homes, working with overwhelmed caregivers to take in their animals in small groups rather than all at once, providing spay, neuter, and vaccination for owned pets and community cats, making free temporary pet boarding available to owners experiencing a crisis, asking the public to participate in finder to foster programs, scheduling appointments for non-emergency intake, and inviting stray pet finders to file found reports and help get lost pets home. So, in brief, I know there's 9 different points of what this person says managed intake is. I know my thoughts, but I'm not. This is your show, Amy. I want to know your thoughts.
I feel like that is wonderful in theory. I really do. I would love to be able to get there someday. But the truth is, I don't believe that could be effectively implemented without some sort of ramifications or downside or repercussions from some of those decisions, in my mind. This is how I feel about our own surrender by appointment program that we have. If people are willing to spend the time to call us and ask us how to surrender their pets, and they're willing to go through all of the issues that we provide them, like Okay, so if you're having issues with your behavior, have you tried our behavior training certificate yet? If they're willing to do that, then they're willing to put in the time. When they come to my door, it's too late. I can't intervene. It's now my responsibility to take that dog in, but still be transparent and let them know I can't guarantee it. I can't guarantee a live outcome, especially depending on why they're there, right? So I think in a picture perfect world, those 9 points absolutely would be amazing. I'm not seeing that being able to be properly managed today in the conditions that we're all in.
My follow-up question for that behavior program you're talking about, do you have a statistic? Do you have a number of how many people come into the shelter to surrender? And maybe your front desk staff tells them about this program. Is there a statistic on that shows the percentage of people who do accept that versus they're like, nope, too late. Here's my dog. I'm done.
So we do have stats, and had I thought of that, I should have pulled it up beforehand. I was trying to see if it was in my annual report, but I feel like it's in our normal stats.
I'm just springing it on you because I like to do
Thanks.
these things.
No problem. So what we do try to keep track of are how many appointments are made versus the no-show rate. So, and that could be for a variety of reasons. They can either have used Adopt a Pet, because that's on our website as well. They could have rehomed them themselves. They could have decided to keep them based on the training certificate. And sometimes we don't know. Because I will tell you that of the 79,000 calls that came into my 5 dispatchers last year, they're not calling them back to see why they didn't show up to their appointment. And boo on us for not being able to do that. But I promise you, it's just not happening. It's not.
We just don't have time. We don't have time.
No, we don't. And maybe, like I said, maybe that's irresponsible of us, but no, they've got other things that they need to work on.
Yeah.
So, all right. So I'm just pulling up 2023. And of course, I can't tell you the exact reason why. But what I can tell you is that for the year, remember, I took in over 11,000 animals last year in 2023. 1,049 appointments were made. 436 didn't show up for the whole year. So we had what we call it is a percent prevented. We don't know why it was prevented. We don't know why they didn't show, but it was 41%. So I don't know.
And that's just guesses of what happened. It could have been everything worked out fine, or it could have been that they abandoned their animal inside their house, or they dumped it in a park.
Yes.
Who knows?
Yes.
They're all logically they're all options.
Yes. 1,046 didn't or made the appointments, and then the 400 and some didn't show up. The nice thing that we do, dispatch system, we use Chameleon. So when anyone calls in, we're immediately making in a link so we can have that owner address, the animal information. So in the event they don't show, and let's say there's an eviction, etc., if they did leave an animal behind, we would have that information. Had that in a minute. As far as someone making an appointment and leaving their animal behind, yes, we still have animals left behind, but not necessarily through the appointment process.
All right, last chunk of this. Same author, same article, talking about what managed intake is not, according to the author of this article. There's 5 points. Turning away animals in need or telling people to put animals back where they found them, allowing packs of dogs to roam free and pose a potential threat to public safety, forcing people to keep pets they can't keep or don't want, allowing sick or injured animals to suffer without responding to cruelty, neglect, or emergency animal control calls, failing to address public safety concerns, and dangerous dogs. Do you think, Amy Jo, that those 5 points are very well represented in sheltering in today's managed intake world?
No, and that's why I answered the way I answered when you read off those 9 points, is because those 5 factors are not being remembered. they're not being brought to the forefront of the staff's mind for whatever reason. They're looking at the other things, and then they're almost inadvertently, either subconsciously or consciously, putting our citizens sometimes in danger, or animals in danger, by keeping them into the homes that they should not be in. I don't ever want to see another domestic violence case that results in an animal's death, but yet it happens. And we, again, it's our job to be the intervention. That's, if we see signs and symptoms and situations, it's our job to pull that animal out, because it's our job to keep them safe. But in the same respect, if I've got a dangerous dog in the community, I'm going to pull it, and I'm going to go dangerous in our court system. And if that makes us a horrible shelter because we're not giving that dog a chance, so be it. But I cannot, in good conscience, keep an animal out in the community that is a known threat to humans and has caused damage.
And I think, because I'll put it on record, all these 5 points of what managed intake supposedly is not is just a load of garbage to me, honestly. I'm just gonna stick with that term. I'm just gonna stick with that one. Because it's happening. It is. I mean, you could say all you want about this is not how we operate. This is not what we do, but you do. I don't mean you, right?
No, I know what you
With
mean.
clarity, I'm not talking about, and I want to make sure our viewers know that too. I'm not talking about Amy Jo. No. I'm talking about managed intake. They do turn away animals that are in need. They do, as a result of their policies, allow packs of dogs to roam loose in the public. Whether they're a public safety threat or not, it doesn't really matter, because then you're still ultimately responsible for if that animal ends up getting hit by a car or attacked by another loose dog or something, right? Forcing people to keep pets that they don't want or can't keep, they do this all the time, because you can't wait 2 months, 4 months to surrender an animal that you don't want or need. Why are we making people hold on to it? Like, get them out of there, get them a home, get them somewhere they're going to be loved and appreciated and taken care of, and somebody who wants to work with the animal, or if they need to be euthanized because that's the way that they need to be, that's the way they need to be. I would prefer that over them just saying, well, fine, I'm gonna chain it up in my backyard and it's gonna live there alone for the next 4 months until you have a spot open. Mm-hmm. Allowing animals, sick or injured animals, to suffer, and not addressing public safety concerns about dangerous dogs. Sorry, but we see article after article after article after article across the country of this all the time. I mean, someone died in Texas last year by back of wild dogs. So I think, it's a bunch of garbage. It is, in my opinion, exactly what happens as a result of purely managed intake. So, to make this not totally a buzzkill at the end, Amy, I want to talk a little bit about your shelter and your programs, and because it's from what we've been talking about over months and through this podcast episode, you kind of approach your sheltering and management of that blended. It's not, you are open admission, yes, but you practice some of these limited admission items for improvement, for good things that I commend you for. So I'm gonna stop talking. Talk about yours and your programs.
Sure, not a problem. So as I've mentioned, our managed intake, if you will, it's predominantly for owner surrenders. It's never for strays, and it's never for anything that's a public safety threat. Period. We also do managed intake for euthanasia by requests. So let's say it's not a life-threatening issue right now, but it's coming time. You don't necessarily want to be there. You want to be able to say goodbye after. You're not there during the procedure. We do those by appointments as well. So that has actually helped us tremendously, because I don't know if your shelter provides this service or not, but Fridays, especially the day before a holiday at 4:30 and you're trying to close by 6, you get an influx of euthanasia by requests. And I'm like,
Yep.
did you not know yesterday? I mean, those kind of things, right? So, or we'll see it like, that the surrenders also increase because the boarding facilities are full and they're going on vacation for a week and they don't have anyone else to care for their pets. So, we do see situations like that still too. But again, for our managed intake, if you will, for owner surrenders, we're going to try to be that intervention resource facility first while they're waiting for their appointment. Okay. If at
Mhm.
any point in time, and they know this, if at any point in time the dog's situation or the cat's situation escalates, or your scenarios have changed, or you just absolutely cannot wait, they can walk in. They just know that the risk of humane euthanasia is higher. So
Mhm.
we disclaim that. It's on our website, it's on our paperwork, it's on, it's verbally given to them. We have recorded phone lines, so the information is there. Now, whether or not people retain that information, I can't attest to that. So, but we have had the managed intake program since 2018. It was slow roll at first, and we've increased it over the years. But our biggest problem, and you probably know this as well, is pet friendly housing.
Mhm.
Cannot afford to have the pet deposits. And not everyone is willing to do the research first when they're looking for housing. They're not willing to ask those questions. They just
Mhm.
have the risk, right? They have the dog, and then their landlord's fixing the light fixture, and he's like, you can't have dogs here, was in your contract. And all of a sudden it's an us issue. So, but we get it, I mean, it is what it is. And I can't tell people how to, I don't want to say be responsible, but to do the legwork, right?
Mhm.
I can't always do that for them, but we have it on our website, pet friendly housing, we have how much the deposits are, if we know, that kind of thing. But people have to put in the time. Just
Mhm.
like you put in the effort when you're buying a car, you got to do the same thing when you're investing in having a pet for the entire life of them. So yeah, so we do managed intake for owner surrenders. We do managed intake for euthanasia by request. However, as I've stated several times, because we know it's our responsibility and because we know we're people's last option, they can come through our doors at any time.
When I look at this from like open admission, limited admission, from like a macro, long term um, idea, it's kind of I don't know. I kind of just it has hit me the other day is I think we're all actually either consciously or not working towards being all open admission shelters because we want to be able to take in whatever for any reason if they need it. um, but I don't think that we get there through managed intake. I think that there are, I mean, I always say on here is my tagline is spay is the way, spay
Yes.
neuter is the way to go. There's other things too. I'm not like, we have to have education and stuff like that. But I just started thinking about this concept is like everybody wants to be able to help every single animal in any situation, whether they actually bring them into the shelter or not. But like we all want to have room in case it happens. Nobody wants to be sitting there at 250% capacity or euthanizing, 100 animals a day, or or turning animals away who actually need it, and then they question what's going to happen to them after when they walk out. I don't think that any of us really want any of that stuff on the inside, no matter where you're coming from. And so I don't know. I just feel like manage and take doesn't get us there
No,
if
I
you're
think
strictly adhering to that.
yes. I think it's a combination of several factors. So yes, managed intake probably could be effective, but it starts way before that. I mean, you've already touched on it. Having more access to affordable vet care, affordable spay neuter, and I'm talking about, yeah, it's affordable, but can you even get in? I
Mm-hmm.
mean, you make the appointments, or the first day they open up the calendar, is it full? And
Yeah.
then you're screwed for the next month. Sorry. But you have affordable vet care. access to spay neuter and making it affordable. You have pet-friendly housing. I mean, honestly, some of these landlords need to understand that you can be a really good tenant and still have a cat.
Mhm.
Not every cat pees outside of the box. It's weird. It actually exists. So, and it's frustrating to me that the community has failed. I mean, and I'm not just talking about our community, but factors within your community aren't there. So now the problem is that you're open admission shelters and we're the ones that are demonized.
Yeah, 100%.
It's frustrating. So I try to explain, in the most tactful way, let's stop them before they even come to my door. And these are the ways we can do this, proper breeding laws, somebody to actually uphold these breeding laws. We have so many things at our state level that really make zero sense and there's no enforcement arm at all. I'm like, why is it on the books? That's dumb. So, I mean, if you're in my city, I can do something about it. But if you're even outside the city limits of Fort Wayne or outside of New Haven, I can't do anything about it. And honestly, I've got so many breeders, like full operations that absolutely affect my intake. But again, the outcome is our fault. And that's not fair.
Why do you think that managed intake has become progressively more popular and taken up by agencies around the country? And what's the solution?
So I think there was a big push a few years back, and I don't remember exactly how many, but it was like, why is it the shelter's problem when an owner no longer wants their pet? It shouldn't be the shelter's problem. It should be the owner's problem. So the owner should have to figure out what to do with it, right? Because it's going to look bad on me if I can't make the best possible outcome. And I'm saying me as a shelter, not necessarily Fort Wayne Animal Care and Control. Right. So when that was implemented, again, pie in the sky, great idea. Man, wouldn't that be great if we held people accountable for their actions? But we all know today's society wants quick and easy, right? I don't want to put in the time. I don't have the issue. I mean, fast food is no longer even fast enough.
Yeah.
Right? So it's the same type of thing. And it's like, and I'm not blaming, not everyone is like that. I understand that, but that push was there. And so now shelters are like, nope, where some shelters can't say nope. Yeah. So as everyone around us, we are the largest open access shelter in Northeast Indiana. And when I've got counties, like 3 counties away, that are coming to Fort Wayne because their shelters are full, I've got a problem with that.
Yeah.
You have to handle your own problem. I'm sorry. You have to be uncomfortable. You have to make those decisions because it's not fair for you to push off the things you don't want to deal with to somebody else. That's not fair.
Right. I just won't ever understand it. We talk about animals like they're our kids. My dogs are my kids, honestly. When Child Protective Services has to come, they don't say, well, we don't have room for this kid. I mean, what?
Right.
It's the same to me. I see it the same way. They're 100% as reliant on you as a child is. Like how we treat them differently and say, sorry, pet parent, it's your problem. I could say a lot about it, and I don't want to get on that kind of tangent, but because where that would go, but but it's the blame, man. I like what you do because I think there are certain aspects to managed intake that shelters can adopt that would make things better for them, like you have done. I also avidly believe all shelters should be open admission shelters.
And I feel like for the most part, I agree with you. So at least for our community, we're blessed. We have 2 shelters. We have the limited access shelter and then we have us. I would love to see if limited admission and municipal shelters or whatever, wherever you're at, if that limited admission shelter could concentrate on the owner surrenders, if they could concentrate on that. And then we take the government obligatory intakes. whether it's the stray animals running loose, it's the police are on scene and we got to remove the dogs because of the drug raid, it's the owner died and we've got to take in that animal until next of kin can be found. If we could concentrate on just the animals that we're legally responsible for based on ordinance, and they concentrate on owner surrenders, that would be amazing.
Yeah.
I think that would be something that truly would be an amazing partnership. Because yes, would it affect their euthanasia rates? Absolutely. But no matter what anybody says, euthanasia is occurring in every single shelter across the US. Period. Amen. It just depends on the percentage that gives them that glorious title, which is a lie to the community.
Mm-hmm.
And sorry, but that's just the truth.
I see. I don't have anything to say because you're saying everything perfectly and much more articulately than I could. I 100% agree. I'll ask you for your closing remarks and things you want to know. I would say in closing is that the animals aren't numbers, and we look at them that way, and there's so much more than that. And if that magic number went away, how much more simple or easy, I want to say simple, how much more emotionally and mentally easier this would be for everybody in animal welfare, particularly those working in an open admission capacity would be. That's my opinion. So anything you want to say to wrap up, Amy, that we didn't cover or whatever?
I feel like we covered a lot.
I feel like this could drag out for another hour, honestly.
Right? Yeah. I try to warn people, and I did not do that for you, and I'm sorry. I am very passionate about what we do because I have truly seen us evolve over the last 20 years, where we went from the old style of thinking and what animal controls were initially built for. They were initially built for rabies control, catch and kill, period. That's what they were, designed for. And I have seen us grow from that style of intake outcome to having a robust adoption program, volunteers, 13,000 hours a year. I've got fosters that, we're doing 1,300 to 1,500 animals out in foster every year with 200 families. And I've got a managed intake for own surrenders. I've got resources that I can provide to people. We've implemented community cats. I mean, that was huge. I closed our depositories. I took away the breed restriction as far as anything that was a pit bull or pit bull mix couldn't be adopted out unless it was 2 years old. Got rid of that. It was just silliness because it was older thinking, right? And I'm not saying it's it's because of me. It's not. It's just because we kept up with what are the trends and what's actually working. And, dog play groups are more effective for true animal behavior than this style of assessment. So we've watched it all, right? And we're learning, we're growing, we're trying to be the best that we can with the resources that were provided. But until animal welfare is seen as a true profession, it's not going to be respected at the level to get the funding that it needs.
Agreed. Agreed.
That's kind of where I'm at. But I mean, no matter what happens with our partners or other shelters or what stigma is out there as far as an open admission shelter, I have a job to do. My staff are dedicated and they love animals more than anyone could ever imagine. So when people say I couldn't work there because I love animals too much, that is why we work here, period.
I love it. Well, Amy, I want to say thank you very much for coming on and talking about it's a difficult topic because there's so much on both sides. You did it eloquently, wonderfully. And I just want to say thank you. You're probably, hands down, probably one of the best directors I know. And so I appreciate it. I do. I very sincerely mean that. I really do. Thank you for your time, for all of your opinions and where we're going and breaking this down with me. It was a pleasure.
Well, thank you for having me. It was a pleasure being on.
And for all of our viewers, I'm always going to hit you with the tagline here at the end. Just remember, spay is the way.